The void piercer hung in space like a monument to failure. For 3 standard cycles, the Galactic Coalition's most devastating weapon had drifted uselessly above the war-torn planet of Zareth Prime. Its crystalline core, capable of channeling enough exotic matter to collapse a star, sat dormant. Dead. The weapon that was supposed to end the Krellick's invasion had become nothing more than an expensive piece of debris. Commander Vexral of the Ashanti fleet watched the superweapon through the viewport of his flagship, his 4 eyes dimming with despair. Around him, the bridge crew worked in tense silence, their mandibles clicking nervously as they monitored the Krellick's armada advancing through the outer system. Still no response from the piercer's core? Vexral asked, though he already knew the answer. None, Commander, his weapons officer replied, her voice carrying the weight of inevitability. The exotic matter remains inert. Whatever malfunction occurred during initialization appears to be permanent. Vexral's claws tightened around the armrest of his command throne. 50 billion souls lived on Zareth Prime. The Coalition fleet could hold the Krellick's for perhaps another rotation, maybe 2. But without the void piercer, the outcome was certain. The Krellick's would break through, and another world would fall to their insatiable hunger. A proximity alarm chimed across the bridge. Unidentified vessel emerging from hyperspace, the sensor operator announced. Signature is... Wait, it's transmitting Coalition codes, human codes. Vexral felt his blood chill. The humans, the newest, members of the Galactic Coalition, barely a century removed from their first faster-than-light experiments. They had contributed almost nothing to the war effort. No weapons, no soldiers, just a handful of outdated ships patrolling their own border systems. The view screen shifted to show the newcomer, and Vexral had to suppress a laugh that would have been dangerously close to hysteria. The human vessel looked like it had been assembled in a scrapyard. Its hull was a patchwork of different alloys, lacking any of the elegant curves that characterized proper warship design. Exposed conduits ran along its exterior like veins, and its propulsion system left a trail of what appeared to be actual chemical exhaust. They called it the HCSV Indomitable. Incoming transmission, the communications officer said. A human appeared on screen, male if Vexral remembered correctly, with graying hair and eyes that held an unsettling intensity. He wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration. This is Captain James Reeves of the Human Coalition ship Indomitable. We received your distress beacon regarding the void piercer malfunction. Permission to approach and render assistance. Vexral struggled to keep the dismissiveness from his voice. Captain Reeves, your offer is appreciated but unnecessary. This is a matter requiring expertise in exotic matter manipulation and quantum crystalline energy matrices operating in higher dimensional spaces. Yeah, we got the specs. Reeves interrupted, his tone casual. Look, Commander, I'm not going to waste time with formalities. You've got about 18 hours before the Krellick's punch through your lines. We can fix your weapon, or you can explain to those 50 billion people down there why you turned away help because our ship looks like garbage. The bluntness caught Vexral off guard. In 3 centuries of military service, no one had ever spoken to him with such directness. Very well, he conceded. Approach vector is being transmitted now. But Captain, our top scientists have been unable to. We're not scientists, Commander. We're engineers. There's a difference. 4 hours later, Vexral stood in the void piercer's control chamber alongside Captain Reeves and 2 human technicians. The space was vast, designed to accommodate the Coalition's various species, but it felt cramped with the massive crystalline core dominating the center, a lattice of impossible geometry that hurt to look at directly. Coalition scientists surrounded the core, their instruments beeping uselessly as they documented yet another failed restart attempt. When the humans entered, several scientists turned with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed contempt. Reeves walked straight to the core, pulled out what appeared to be an ancient handheld scanner and spent approximately 30 seconds examining the structure. Then he laughed, actually laughed, in a way that made every alien in the room tense. Found your problem, he announced. Your exotic matter has phase-locked with the quantum substrate. It's not malfunctioning, it's just stuck. The lead Ashanti scientist, Dr. Kelvor, bristled. Impossible. The calculations for phase variance were triple-checked. The probability of such an occurrence is 1 in 4 trillion. Yeah, but you forgot something, Reeves said, pulling a battered tablet from his jacket. The probability assumes ideal conditions. This thing has been running combat ops non-stop. For what, 6 months? You've got residual tachyon buildup in layers 3 through 7, and it's creating interference patterns in the dimensional matrices. Kelvor's eyes all widened simultaneously. The computational power required to model such interactions is beyond even our... We don't model it, one of the human technicians interrupted, a young woman who was already climbing into the core's access shaft with a toolbox that looked like it predated spaceflight. We just account for it empirically. Back home we call it the good enough principle. What followed was the most unorthodox engineering procedure Vexerol had ever witnessed. The humans didn't use sophisticated quantum tools or dimensional manipulators. They used magnetic pulse generators, crude devices that would have seemed archaic to most species. They manually adjusted resonance frequencies, watching flickering readouts and making decisions based on what one technician called gut feeling. This is madness, Dr. Kelvor muttered. There are 17,000 variables to account for. They're just improvising. But Vexerol watched Captain Reeves work with growing fascination. The human didn't calculate, he observed. He noticed patterns the coalition scientist had dismissed as noise. He saw connections that their sophisticated models had overlooked. Humans are adaptable, Vexerol said quietly. We forget that sometimes. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways. They learned to improvise, to see problems not as equations to solve but as obstacles to overcome. 6 hours into the process, the crystalline core began to hum. Not with the pure mathematical precision it had possessed before, but with something rougher, more primal. The exotic matter began to flow, pulled from its quantum lock by brute force adjustments and what the humans called percussive maintenance, which apparently meant hitting things with a wrench until they worked. The Void Piercer came alive. On the bridge of his flagship, Vexerol watched as the superweapons targeting systems locked onto the Krelix armada. The enemy had pushed through the outer defenses and now hung in high orbit above Zareth Prime, their landing pods beginning their descent. Void Piercer is fully operational, the weapons officer reported, disbelief evident in her voice. All systems showing green, ready to fire on your command. Fire, Vexerol ordered. The weapon discharged with a sound that shouldn't have been, audible in the vacuum of space, a deep, resonant note that every crew member felt in their bones. Reality itself seemed to fold as exotic matter surged outward, creating a cascade of dimensional disruptions that swept through the Krelix formation like wildfire. In 17 seconds, the threat was neutralized. Later, as the Indomitable prepared to depart, Captain Reeves stood with Vexerol in the flagship's observation deck. Your scientists are still trying to figure out exactly what you did, Vexerol said. Reeves smiled. Honestly, we're not entirely sure either. But here's what I learned in 30 years of engineering. Sometimes the universe doesn't give a damn about your calculations. Sometimes you just need to roll up your sleeves and make things work. The Coalition underestimated humanity, Vexerol admitted. We saw your short history, your crude technology, and assumed you had nothing to contribute. Yeah, well, we're good at being underestimated, Reeves replied. Comes with the territory when you're the new guys. But here's the thing, Commander. We've been solving impossible problems since we figured out how to make fire. This, he gestured at the now functioning superweapon. This was just Tuesday for us. As the Indomitable jumped to hyperspace, its chemical exhaust trail dissipating into the void, Vexerol understood something fundamental. The galaxy's older civilizations had advanced through logic, precision, and millennia of accumulated knowledge. They had created wonders through careful calculation, but humanity had survived through adaptation, improvisation, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. The galaxy had built a superweapon that failed. It took humanity to make it work. And perhaps, Vexerol thought, that was the most human thing of all.